Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hi, Akua. How are you? And thanks for tuning in on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Happy Wednesday, guys. I'm just gonna wait for a couple more people to tune in. Feel free to, leave in the comment where you're tuning in from. What city and state are you in? It's always interesting to know where everybody is. Um, I'm in Florida. It's sunny and nice today. So let me start by introducing myself. So my name is Ayesha Chidolue. I'm an immigration attorney here in Orlando, Florida. I represent clients all over the United States and internationally with their family immigration matter. So your state doesn't really matter. My number here is scrolling through on Facebook and YouTube, but for those of you on Instagram, it's 407-995-6567. Once I get off the live, you can also find it in my profile. So, I see New York in the house, Panama City. So my fellow Floridian, even though Panama City is like 2 hours away from where I'm from. So while I'm talking, you feel free to leave your comments or your questions in the comment box. Today, I really just want to answer questions that you guys have, and of course, talk about, the potential good news with the public charge rule. So, don't be shy. This is your opportunity to ask questions because I see you guys in my DM sending messages. So feel free to ask. And, if I can answer them, I'll answer them. Otherwise, you can definitely schedule a consult. So today in the world of immigration, the first thing I want to talk about is the good news. I know you guys saw that I posted about a little video about the public charge rule and the fact that the public charge rule is soon to be gone. And how do I break that down simply in layman's terms? Basically, I've talked about this before. Public charge rule is really where we call it the well test, where the previous administration passed this rule last year where you need to meet this. Hi, Dimitri, how are you? Where you have to meet this criteria to be able to adjust your status in the United States, like if you're filing based on marriage, or like you're filing for your parent or your child, and things like that. And so, it looks at your financial capability and the odds that you might be in public charge. So you ask for a lot of things that were very difficult for a lot of immigrants, like, insurance, credit score, credit history. A lot of immigrants clearly don't have their social security numbers. So, it was a ridiculous rule because they didn't have their social security. So they couldn't really give credit scores. They want you to be able to speak English. A lot of immigrants don't come from primarily English speaking countries. So, it really was unduly burdensome, for a lot of immigrants and even attorneys, trying to, assist immigrants with their issues. So what ended up happening yesterday was Biden basically, threw that out. And, the Department of Justice basically agreed not to press or push any appeals on that. So basically, it's going to be stopping. So here's the thing. It hasn't stopped yet, but it is in the process of doing so. So a lot of times, even though a rule is passed, we have to wait for like a final rule, and we have to wait on guidance from USCIS. So as of today, which I logged in just to check before I tune into this live, the I-944 is still there. So we still kind of need to do it, while we're waiting. But I'm hopeful that in the next couple of weeks that we're going to get some guidance, and it's going to be, hopefully permanently erased from the world of immigration. So that's that. I'm going to take questions. I'm just going to scroll through and say hi and wait a couple of minutes for, people to tune in and have the courage to ask some questions. And I'll be happy to answer you. So Nadia says, hi. Hi, Nadia. How are you? Where are you logging in from? What city? What city are you in? Hi, Brandon. How are you? Wow, Tara Mate is watching all the way from Guyana, South America. That is so cool. Thank you for tuning in. Hi, Macedona. Let's see on Instagram what's going on here. Hi, guys, on Instagram. Panama City, I said that one already. And just some hi, Taj Beauty Bar. Thanks for tuning in. Hi, Kiara, Washington State. Okay, so do you guys have any questions for me today? I don't believe that nobody has any questions today. I just told you guys about good news. So give me some questions. If you don't have any questions, I'm going to, log off since I already talked about what I wanted to talk about. Washington State. So that is like super early there. It's like, is it like 8 a.m.? In Washington. Hi, Doreen. Thanks for tuning in. All right, Zanya, what is your question? Ask your question. Let's see how I can help you. All right, let me see. I think I got a question here on IG. Let's see. I don't even know how to check that stuff on IG. Okay, so you're asking a question, public charge rule for IR5. So I don't know how early you tuned in, but I was just saying the public charge rule is soon leaving in all categories and is reverting back to what the old rule was. So a lot of the things, if you go down my timeline a little bit, I almost want to say 2 weeks ago, I talked about the 7 categories for public charge rules. So right now it's leaving. So you're hopefully, we'll get some guidance on that soon. Somebody says, how do I go about filing for my husband's son who's back in Jamaica? So, Zanya, you start the process here in America first. Actually, let's actually roll back. So the question is, how old is your husband's son? So basically your stepson. If you're only eligible to file for him if you married his father before he turned 18. If you married his father before he turned 18, then you can file for him. When you file, how it's done, you do the first part of your application here by submitting your I-130, which is basically a petition for an alien relative. And then from there, once you're approved, you move on to the consular processing. Consular processing simply means you're processing it outside of the United States. So in Jamaica. So Nadia says, has the USCIS said anything concerning Vawa cases? Like what? No, nothing has been said yet about that. So I haven't heard anything. Somebody on Instagram says, does my wife have to change her last name to prove bona fide marriage? No, I mean, this is 2021. A lot of women don't necessarily keep their spouse's name. That being said, when you're looking at bona fide marriages, things of the heart and financials and financial commingling are the most important factors that they look at. And what does that mean? It means that, you want to make sure that you are able to remember pertinent things and things that are valuable to you as a couple. When you met your spouse, where you guys went on your first date, your wedding anniversary, when your spouse proposed, little things like that you might think, oh, I forgot, or whatever it is. It's critical that you remember things like that, because it shows, bona fides. And then you want to think about like the financial aspects. How are you guys commingling your funds? A lot of times I see a lot of people say, oh, we have a joint bank account. And when you look at the joint bank account, even though it has both parties' name, there's no transaction there. Or maybe in the entire month, they've spent like $100 in that account. Like that is not a good bona fide. A good bona fide bank account will show activity, continuous activity, meaning I want to go to Publix. We swipe in the card. I'm going to I don't know, UPS. I'm swiping the card or paying bills, and taking money from the ATM. So they want to see activity, and they don't only want to see activity from one card. They want to see activities from both cards. Somebody on Instagram is asking me, are nannies considered essential workers as far as what? Like in immigration or in US based on what is happening with COVID? I'm not really sure what the question, you're asking is. So back to what I was saying. So you really want to show, other than bank accounts, having filing taxes together. You don't want to be married and then filing head of household and your spouse is not included, in your taxes. Those are good things to show that you have a bona fide marriage, from a financial standpoint. Another good thing is, even if you both can have your names on a utility bill, you want to have other things that you have your name on. Like, most car insurance, you can list both drivers on car insurance. If you have health insurance, you can always add health insurance on like add your spouse onto your own health insurance. Most employers give like a limited amount of life insurance. You can always add your spouse as a beneficiary. So basically, when you're thinking of a bona fide marriage, it's not really about what am I trying to say? It's not really about whether she takes your name or not. It is the action, of everything combined in totality, when they're looking at bona fide. Okay, so Shay said, are nannies considered essential workers for Biden's amnesty? No, they are not. Okay, so let's see what else we've got here. Oh, Brandon. Well, I just answered this question. I said, what are some of the main documents needed to show that a marriage is bona fide, legit when filing for a marriage-based green card? So, I just, mentioned some of them right now. And then outside of financials, they look at other things. I mean, the list is endless as far as things you can show, but, I'm just going to throw out a few things. Some things also that are good are, if you show pictures, you want to make sure your pictures are descriptive. You want to be able to give context to whatever picture you're sending. Like, what is the date of the picture? What is happening here? Who's this person? Who's this person? And U.S. doesn't want to see pictures of just you and your spouse on your wedding day, or just a picture of two of you kissing in the corner, because those end up looking doctored. They want to see genuineness. So like, they want to see pictures, across the board, pictures of different events, different days, not like a series of 5 pictures from the same event, different hairstyles, different clothes with people. They want to see people with you guys in the picture, because seeing people with you acknowledges that your relationship is not in hiding. The people know about your marriage and know about your relationship. So that's a good bona fide. You can also get affidavits from friends, and family who know you guys and can vouch for your relationship. If you don't have much else, you can also add even phone records. Like usually you can contact, like if you log onto like your phone provider, you can actually just type a phone number in there, like one of the phone numbers you call frequently, and it will print out your call list. Like, so if you call your spouse all the time, like if you're at work and you call your spouse to check on them, or before you guys, moved in together, or, send messages to each other, chat with each other on WhatsApp and stuff like that, by all means send it. I mean, I've been married 12 years, but I still chat with my spouse, on WhatsApp whenever I have downtime. So, you should be able to have things like that, to show your marriage is bona fide. And, obviously the most critical piece is that when you do get to that interview, you want to make sure that you and your spouse know each other. You don't want to go to an interview and they ask you to spell your spouse's name and you can't spell your spouse's name. Or if your spouse has children and you don't know the name of the children, or you don't know the names of the addresses where you live, so you should take interest in your spouse and know who your spouse is and everything you need to know about your spouse. Just so that, you're never tripped up with any question that they ask you. Okay, so let's see what else we have here. Somebody says, I have an immigration pendant to remove conditions on my green card. Is it okay if I take a vacation in Philippines? Okay, so for those of you who don't know, removing conditions on a green card means that you still have a green card. It just means that you have a 2-year temporary green card. So while your case is pending, you are still a green card holder. So all the rules of a green card holder apply to you, including taking a vacation, including leaving the country, including working, basically everything. But, you can't vote, or claim to be a U.S. citizen. Now, the only thing that I'll say to you is that depending on how long your stuff has been pending, you obviously should have gotten an 18-month extension. So if you're closer to the end of your 18-month extension, you want to make sure that you get a new temporary green card stamped on your passport before you leave the country. And you want to make sure it's not when you're not gone too long, so that if they do schedule you for an interview, you're able to come back to attend your interview. Most of the time they're good about giving at least 3 weeks notice for the interview. So let's say you go to the Philippines for just like 10 days. I'm sure you'll be able to get back before your interview. But yeah, you can leave the country because, you're a green card holder. Okay, let me take this question on Instagram. I have a friend, she got married and her husband didn't drop off the signed paper so they could get the marriage certificate. Can she apply for Vawa because she's in an abusive relationship? We have pictures. So essentially, she's not married, is what you're saying. So if she's not legally married, um, she technically can't file for VAWA. The only time that, there's kind of like a loophole there is if she actually got married and there was a marriage ceremony or whatever it is, and then found out that maybe the spouse had previously been married and never really divorced. So basically bigamy, meaning that you're married to more than one person. Normally, bigamy is not allowed in America or approved. But in that case, if you can prove that you did believe that you had a legitimate marriage and that, you celebrated the ceremony and everybody was there as a witness, that's where you can have a loophole. But based on what you're saying, she's not legally married at all. One of the things that she might want to look into is a U visa if she can prove that, she's being abused and she's willing to work with law enforcement. If she's willing to work with law enforcement to apprehend him or, whatever, she might have a different path for her. How long will it take when Fiance file for his husband? Okay, I don't understand your question. Are you saying when a fiance files for her husband? Wait, well, a fiance can file for her husband because you're not married. So can you rephrase that question? All right, let's see. What if you go to the interview and your husband didn't remember the zip code without affect getting your green card? So, it's really hard to say because interviews are subjective. One thing is not going to be what is going to nail the coffin. It's going to be a totality of everything. In reality, who remembers everything? Using my husband as an example, if he's watching this live, he's going to yell at me when I finish, but I'm just joking. But like my husband, for instance, he and my daughter, their birthdays are in March. So the only two people with birthday in March, but I'm telling you that sometimes my husband doesn't remember my daughter's exact date. But does that mean we've not been legitimately married? No, because we've been married for almost 12 years. So, if somebody doesn't remember a zip code, there's so many things that play, those interviews are nerve-wracking. People are nervous, and fearful, when they go to those interviews. So sometimes, you get like brain touch and like, all of a sudden you're not remembering things. But now if you're failing like so many questions, where it doesn't make any sense, then that's going to be a problem. Ultimately, it's your job to convince, that officer they have a legitimate marriage, and just one thing may not be what necessarily nails a coffin, but they look at everything as a whole. You're welcome. You're welcome, Brandon. How about having a child together? Is that a valid factor for a bona fide marriage? Certainly, yeah. Having a child together definitely shows, a relationship, with you and your spouse. Someone says, if you submitted biometric first and USCIS just mailed you that they are processing your I-485, will you get a green card interview and then they forget about the work permit? Aldena on Facebook, I think the question that you're trying to ask me is that, are there times where they will schedule you for your interview before your work permit, you receive your work permit? So in the past, it wasn't as common, but since the pandemic, it's more common. And here's the reason why. Because, in order for you to get your work permit, you either have to go through biometrics or they have biometrics for you and they waive your biometrics due to the fact that the biometrics office was closed for several months. So for people in that situation, sometimes they will get their interview scheduled before, they get their work permit, which at that point, if they've been approved for their green card, their work permit is essentially obsolete. It doesn't really matter because, your green card trumps your work permit. And then there are also some times where an immigrant applicant might be in a field office that is just laser fast. I don't know if this is happening in 2021, but just really laser fast, and they're ready to schedule for an interview and they've not yet finished your work permit. And so that happens to sometimes. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I think you asked us. So you says if you submitted your biometrics first, okay. Okay, so basically, Aldana, you asked the same question twice. So that is the answer to your question. Let me try and get some question here. So my aunt is a green card holder, and she is in an abusive relationship with her husband. Can she get her citizenship even though she left him, and she's eligible now for the citizenship, or she has to wait for 5 years? So Everblessed on Instagram. So it depends on what kind of green card your aunt has. If she has a 10-year green card, she and her husband have divorced, she has to wait 5 years to be eligible. Well, 90 days to the 5 years to be eligible to file for naturalization, which is the same thing as citizenship. If she what was I going to say? If she is a temporary green card holder and she's trying to remove the conditions of her green card, and she can show the abuse that she's experienced to get approved, and she's approved, then if she's approved based on abuse to remove the conditions in her green card, then she can file for citizenship within 3 years. She doesn't have to wait for 5 years. So it's a little bit tricky, but that's the general stuff. Okay, so somebody says, last week I got an RFE on the I-485. I haven't gotten a letter yet. I haven't gotten my fingerprint schedule. Does the RFE affect my fingerprint schedule for I-765 and so on? So it depends on what your RFE, the RFE that you received is. Is it that your application is not complete, that you didn't submit something? So it's very dependent. On a normal basis, it's not, because biometrics is just standard. You have to get your biometrics regardless. Biometrics has no effect on whether you're going to be approved for anything or not. Biometrics is basically saying, let's get your fingerprint and your pictures, is what it's doing. But sometimes, depending on what you submit, like if, let's say, your RFEs on something like on a sponsor or something, or whatever it is, I'm just picking random things here, you may not get your work permit if there's nothing making you eligible for it. So, but as far as the fingerprinting, you can still okay, so you've not gotten your fingerprinting schedule yet. So it won't affect it. It won't affect it, if it's this situation that I'm talking about. Now, also keep in mind that there's a severe delay on fingerprinting biometrics. So, even though you've not gotten it, it doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to get it, because they're way behind. Because, like I mentioned earlier, they were closed, from the pandemic, from March till I think July. Someone says, how long does it take for your child or children to get their documents during VAWA after your child does their VAWA? So the timeline for VAWA is the same for everybody, if that's what you're asking. So if your child applies, do you mean if your child applies for their own VAWA petition or under their parent? Can you clarify the question, favor, Carrie? Moon on YouTube says, can an F1 student get a work permit while waiting for a green card? If yes, at what stage of the application? What are you waiting for? What are you qualifying for a green card for? F1 don't have a direct path to qualify for a green card. So it just depends on what exactly you're waiting for a green card for, because the green card, when you're filing for the green card, that's when you file for your work permit. Otherwise, when you're doing F1, you usually go through OPT. That's occupational training for those who don't know. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so someone on Instagram says, I got my prima facie letter. What should I do from here? Well, congratulations that you got your prima facie letter. That's a good sign. While it's not a guarantee of approval, it means that your case is definitely moving along, and now they're just going to be combing through to make sure that they don't want to request any additional evidence, and stuff like that. Generally, the prima facie, depending on what state you're in, Taj, on Instagram, it has different benefits. So, either, like I'll use my state, for instance. Here in the state of Florida, with a prima facie, you can get a driver's license. So if you don't have a driver's license, depending on your state, you might be eligible for a driver's license. So one of the things you can do is check your state's DMV website. In some states, it will allow you to have certain public benefits, but it's very state specific. So I can't tell you in your state, what, I can't tell you what the public benefits are. And it also will allow you to get some aid for school, if you're applying for a financial aid because, you're going to school, to better yourself and stuff like that. All right. Somebody says, what happens if you don't get prima facie letter? Is that what you're trying to say? Well, that's not good. If you don't get a prima facie letter, that's not good. Basically, they're saying that you've not established the basics to be classified as a Vawa applicant. So you want to get your prima facie, and if you didn't get it and you file for it, call me. Let's see what's going on and why you didn't get it. Somebody says on Facebook, I came to the U.S. with a 5-year student visa, but I did not go to school because I got pregnant before I started school. I'm still here in the U.S. How can I start getting my paper? How can I get a work permit? So you're not going to be able to get a work permit, because you didn't go to school, and yours is actually a tricky situation where it might be a problem because you're going to have to really do a good job of explaining how you entered, you came into the country with the intent to go to school and you didn't go to school. So yours is not cut and dry. It's one of the things that you need a consult to really understand what happened, because they don't like that, when they give you an F1, you didn't even go to school at all. Can you show a photocopy? Guys, just give me a second to drink some water. Okay, can you use a photocopy divorce certificate when you're sending in your paperwork? Of course, you should never send any original documents unless it specifically asks you for an original when you're sending anything to U.S. immigration. Reason being, you will not ever get it back. So you don't send originals. What you can do is you send a photocopy, and then when you're attending your interview, you can take another photocopy and an original, so that if they do ask you for the original, but for whatever reason they don't have that copy, you can then show them, okay, here's the original, but here I'm going to give you a copy. I mean, some USCIS offices will just make a photocopy, but it's always good to be over prepared and just have whatever, just in case. Good morning, Marvy from Des Moines, Iowa. Okay, let's see. My question is that my fiance and I are planning to marry each other, but she's coming down to meet me in Africa. Africa is a big continent. Where in Africa are you? And after that, she'll file for me. How long does it take if she files for me? So if she comes down and you're filing based on marriage, meaning you guys are actually going to get married, so she'll be filing for a spousal visa for you. So the timeline varies. The timeline varies. Basically, prior to COVID, I would say it would be somewhere between 12 to 15 months. But honestly, right now, when people ask me for a timeline, I'm like, I can't really give you a timeline unless I see, your I-130. Let's see what the processing time there is. Let's see if your embassy is seeing people now. Are they seeing people in trickles? Because of the pandemic, there's just a restricted amount of people they're letting in at a time, if that embassy is even letting people in. So, you're looking at a longer timeline than average, but without knowing what your, okay, your name sounds Nigerian, so I'm going to assume that you're Nigerian. If you're Nigerian, there's obviously a backlog, because I'm sure there was also a travel ban. So there's so many people on the line, in Nigeria, who had pending cases, based on the rules that were placed last year. So, it won't be realistic. I wouldn't have a realistic timeline, honestly, but hopefully it doesn't take forever. Hondo says, even if it's from Jamaica, I'm not really sure what that question is about. Can you clarify? Somebody says, what does it mean if your case is in review? Exactly what it means. It means that they're reviewing your case. So are you talking about if your case is outside of the U.S. or in the U.S.? So is it under administrative? It depends. It depends on what you're asking. So Kenzie asked, how long does it take to get a prima facie after you file for VAWA? So not everybody gets a prima facie. It depends on if you submit everything, that they need to establish that you have a prima facie determination letter, or if they're asking for an RFE. But what I will say though is that if you have your stuff together and everything is submitted on time, the average is somewhere between 12 to 15 weeks, but don't hold me to it just because, all officers are different, but that is an average. So meaning they're going to be people with less time quicker or people with more time. Okay, he says, after the interview. So this person is asking, what does it mean if your case is being reviewed? Yeah, so that's exactly what it means. It means you're doing some background investigation on you. So it could mean various things. Basically, they don't have enough at the time, maybe right after your interview to make a decision. So they need to research your case and your background before they make a decision. That's what it means. Okay, let's see what else we got here. You're welcome. All right, let me see. I feel like I'm neglecting Instagram, but it's so hard to scroll through here to see it. Well, okay, so do we have anything else on Facebook? Let's see if I'm missing anything else before I jump off. Okay, let's see. What are the main documents? I think I covered everything else. Okay, someone says, can you get Medicaid without a green card? Honestly, if you don't have, right now, it's not advisable. So granted, the public charge rule is going very soon, we hope. But, until it goes, that's something that could affect you if you, applying for a marriage-based case, or you're susceptible to the public charge rule. So I wouldn't advise it. Somebody says, come to Atlanta. We are in Atlanta, so we have an office in Atlanta, Aldeno. So my primary base is here in Florida, but, I try to go to Atlanta a couple times, in the year to meet with clients. So don't worry, you'll soon see us very soon with the permanent stable there. Do you guys have any other questions before I jump off? She says my aunt has a 10-year. Okay, my aunt and her husband are not divorced. She has a 10-year green card. She just ran away from him. Yeah, I would definitely recommend she waits 5 years, because if she's doing it based on marriage, she has to be there with him. I mean, he has to be there with her for the naturalization when she attends the interview. So don't. She shouldn't even try to put herself in a situation that she can't get out of. Just wait 5 years. That's the good thing is she's actually a green card holder, so she's fine. How long will it take to get a fiance visa in Jamaica? Okay, I just talked about this, literally 5 minutes ago. So when I get off the live, I'm gonna save this, and then you can just try and watch it. Just maybe rewind back like about 25 minutes into it. I talked about the fact that, the processing time just varies. Typically, fiance visa is slightly shorter than a marriage visa, but honestly, these days with the pandemic, it just depends. Is your file complete? Are they requesting for additional evidence? Are they sending you an NOIR? Are they sending you an NOID? So there's so many variables to it, but just 12 to 15 months is what I would say average. If you get it sooner, wonderful, but there's a possibility that you could also get it later. So he says, I'm filing an adjustment of status soon. Do you advise that I wait until the public charge rule goes before I file? Go ahead now. I would never advise anybody to wait on being legal in this country, because for all the time that you're not legal, you can get a notice to appear in front of an immigration judge for deportation. So you never want to wait for nothing, or however long something takes, because you don't ever want to be caught by an ICE officer tomorrow. You can get into it with somebody, and the next thing you know, you're in an ICE holding facility. So if you qualify for something, file today. If while you're doing it, the public charge rule, is removed, then it will not apply to you. So you don't have to worry about that. Your interview is going to be at least, 10 to 12 months from now. And if the public charge will, knock on wood, will be gone by then. So by then you can, they'll remove it. Someone said, is the public charge only when you're in the state, or does it apply? So it's not called the public charge rule. They have something similar, which also in the process of being removed outside of the United States. But until we have finality on both, then I'll bring the finality to you guys. But they don't call the I-944. It's called something else when you're consular processing. Okay, let's see what else. 5:40. I'm waiting on my appointment. Somebody says, I'm waiting on my appointment to do my biometrics from October. No answers yet. How long more should I wait? Just October? Girl, you got to wait and be patient. I told you there's a backlog. Many people are in the backlog. So just be patient. I know everybody wants to get their stuff, but you just have to be patient. Somebody asked, where in Florida are you? I'm actually in Lake Mary, Florida. And this is in Orlando suburbs, in the suburbs of Orlando. So Central Florida. That's where I am. Macedona says, I have questions. You can ask your question. If it's something I can answer real quick, I will. Marvy says, I did my marriage-based green card interview yesterday. Is it a good sign that after the interview, he says they will mail me the final response? He can make the final decision. So there's no telling, honestly. Some officers have a poker face, and they will, some officers, you literally believe you're getting a denial once you walk out of there, and then you get a approval. And then some officers are super nice, you're like, oh yeah, I'm definitely getting approved. And then you get a notice of intent to deny. Or some officers or tell you they'll recommend you for an approval, and they approve you. So it's really hard to say, without knowing what happened in your interview. So I'll just say be patient and wait and see. And sometimes they can approve you, but it can take a long time. I've had clients that, we went to the interview and got that same, that we actually even got a recommendation for approval, but we didn't see the approval till like 6 months later, or I've had clients that they said basically the same thing that, they told you, and we got the approval like literally when we're driving out of the office. So, it really varies. Okay, guys, let's see. I think I've covered everything. Okay, guys, well, I enjoyed chatting with you all today. Hope you tune in next week, and see you guys next time. Bye.